Do we commence? Okay, so a slightly different format today, but as I say, once a month, just to do insights, knowledge rather than instruction in righteousness is the idea, really. So it's not another talk. That's not what we're after. So like the idea, and it's not necessarily everything that we've ever done before. We want those things, but there's lots of things going on all the time, and the Bible gives you a good view on life. So we might open in prayer. I might ask Eric, would you just pray for us? Yes. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Bless you, Lord.
Yeah, Lord, you've gathered us here together, Lord, in your name, Lord, and we're here to get a blessing, Lord, and I know, Lord, that you'll bestow a blessing on each one and every one that has the heart to listen, Lord. We ask, Lord, for your guidance for the rest of the week, Lord, and we ask this through your Son, Jesus Christ, Lord.
Praise you, Lord. Hallelujah. Bless you, Lord. Amen. Okay, so Pastor Laurie's going to do an item for us, and then we'll be on the slides.
I wrote this song not too long ago, and so the words are hard for me to memorise sometimes. I just had a thought about a person who was saved, and they met the Lord on the day he was crucified. And this song talks about the introduction and various things that happen afterwards. It's just called I Remember the Day. And very much, I think that's all of us. We remember the day we were introduced to the Lord, don't we? I remember the day I came upon the King. Nailed up, he was nailed up for my sin. Full grace and mercy shining within. I remember the day I came upon the King. I remember the day he smiled and spoke to me. Cooled me, calmed me, shown how to be free. The end of the tunnel, light called to see. I remember the day he smiled and spoke to me. I remember the day he set me free from me. His word poured to clarity, took all of my bitter, set my mind free. I remember the day he set me free from me. La 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 la. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. La da 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 da. I remember the day his love came into me. Redeemed, pure humility. Forgiveness in person was real to me. So I remember the day his love came into me. I remember the day like it was yesterday. Recall, recall, he gave me new words to say. Each day of communion, I remember I heard him say, may we remember forever like it was yesterday. Each day of communion, I remember I heard him say, may we remember forever like it was yesterday.
Probably should have put that on after the slides. I think 6 weeks is your trip or something. 6 weeks from when they've arrived. They've got France and Holland after a couple of days here. But if you'd have just travelled and only done that, it would have been worth it. That's fantastic, honestly. That's very, very good. Okay, get myself a little clock going. Any more than 30 minutes, some people will kill me. Any less than Sandra will kill me. When I say it's going to be no more than 30 minutes, she's like, don't be saying that. Kind of go as long as you want type thing, but the aim is 30, something like that. So we see how it goes. So I need a piece of paper. So strangers in the land, we are going to look at in a number of slides migration, mass migration and illegal immigration. The latter two we're seeing in the modern world. We're seeing them in the modern world. There is mass migration going on. There is a lot of illegal immigration going on. And I like this subject, and I normally do Ezekiel's riddle to cover it. But that didn't cover enough of the edges. So I want to talk about the edges of the subject as well. And I started off, I just on my Bible app, I just put in the word strangers and went through all the scriptures in the Old Testament to talk about, particularly the Old Testament, to talk about strangers, and it's an education. It's an education. One of the things is there's a lot of laws about strangers, and therefore you assume there were a lot of strangers in the land. A lot of strangers. A stranger is somebody who's just foreign. Is just foreign. And so we're going to go through a number of things. Is it on? I switched it off. It is on. Yeah. So I mentioned in the first meeting, it's quite a subject a lot of people write about, talk about. A lot of people have got opinions about it. I'm trying to figure out what constitutes an opinion, it's not the same as a belief. It's actually as likely as to be as wrong as a belief, but opinions tend to come from being not well informed. It doesn't take much for people to have an opinion. But when you ask them what they actually know, what they've read, what they've seen, how do they know that? And they might have watched one thing or listened to one person. And with the well-advised, and the point with the well-advised must be the well-informed. He must be the well-informed. It cannot be other, in this subject anyway, that he's other than well-informed to be well-advised, because we're going to look into history. It's better to be uninformed than ill-informed. That's true. That's true. I was watching a little YouTube video of what Putin believes. Vladimir Putin believes. He believes things about Russian history that nobody else believes but him and his people. Right? About Ukraine, that it's theirs and it's historically theirs. Now, most historians don't believe that. But he believes it, and he thinks everybody else is stupid. And therefore you cannot change his belief. His belief cannot be informed. And it would change if it was, and the world would be different if he could have his beliefs informed. So you want informed beliefs. It's just sensible. So this is important. It says, it's Ecclesiastes, the thing that has been is that which is, that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything where it might be said, see, this is new, it's been already of old time, which was before us? So that which is done is that which shall be done. So one place we can look for to be well advised is the past. Because these things have happened before. Every element and every aspect of them has happened before. Some of them, we can find them in history, we're going to find them in the Bible, and they cover all the aspects that I mentioned. They covered all the aspects, so we're going to look at all the aspects. We're going to look at the Old Testament laws. As I say, I went through, just Googled, or not Googled, on my app, the word strangers, and it comes up mostly Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, in the law of God to the people. This is what you are to do, as well as observations in the other books. And we're going to mention a few of them as we go through. God's laws are fabulous. You know, there's different laws. There's laws of our land which are based on God's laws, but a little bit looser these days. There's law in Europe which is based on human rights. It's humanitarian. It's based on the Napoleonic Code. It comes from a different place than British law. They often overlap, and we can look at that, where they're different, how they're different, what difference does it make. And then, as I say, you've got people's opinions. You'll see how good God's law is when you go through it, and when you give it a bit of thought, hopefully. So often when we talk about migration and immigration, I use Ezekiel chapter 17, which is Ezekiel's riddle. And I'll just go through it quickly because I can't spend time on it today, because it's an hour by itself. So in Ezekiel chapter 17, Ezekiel tells a riddle, and he talks about an eagle coming to Judah, taking of the highest branch of the Caesar, the king, taking it to a place of traffic, Babylon, and it will become a low seed. It will become a vine of low stature. And that's what happened. It was predicted that that's what would happen. And Zedekiah is taken to Babylon. He never had a king again in Judah. It was a prophecy and a riddle of what would come with emblems. But then after the Lord explains it to Israel, he says, I also will take of the highest cedar, a 10 to 1, and I will plant it into a land of traffic, and it shall grow to be a great tree, and the fowl of every wing will dwell on its branches. That appears 3 times in the Bible. Once is Ezekiel, to do with the throne of David. Once is Jesus, to do with the church. And once is actually Daniel, to do with Nebuchadnezzar. Babylon also. Babylon, Rome, and Europe are the same identification. The European Union is an outlier of the Roman Empire, which is an outlier of Babylon. And Babylon also had this prophecy, very similar but different. They're talking about different things, although the similarities in the imagery, but they're not the same thing. Yeah, we've done that one. So this is what the Lord says that he would do. In the mountain of the heights of Israel, I will plant it, and it shall bring forth boughs or branches. Britain has branches. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all these type of things. It has a commonwealth. And it shall bear fruit, love, peace, joy, gentleness, and be a goodly seed. And under it, this is the point, under it shall dwell, and under it shall dwell all fowl of every wing. In the shadow of the branches thereof they shall dwell. So the fowl of every wing is people of every nation. That's what it means. The same for Babylon, the same for the church, but the same for Rome, the same for the European Union, right? It's a good thing. And if a fowl goes to a tree, it would look to make a nest, because it goes to a tree because it's a place of protection. And what's happened in this country and in the other places is, if people come here, they have legal protection. This is not about people's opinion. It's about the law of the land. They have legal protection and legal entitlement. We're going to talk about that as we go through. And so when I see it down Gillingham High Street, I see what God's done. Other people see threat and danger. I see what God's done, right? Because he's brought it to pass there. When King Charles was anointed, so there's a little bit in the coronation where they put him behind the screen, they anoint him with oil and tell him to receive the Holy Spirit. And Triona pointed this one out to me. They covered him with the screen. It's a new screen because the old one was 50 years old. And it's a tree. This is Israel. It's a tree with fowls in the branches thereof. The tender twig is I believe, and I would argue, is Teotefi, the king's daughter, that went to Ireland with Jeremiah and brought the throne of David over this way, to Ireland, to Scotland, to England. And while he, the descendant of, is being anointed, he's covered with this tree, with angels, with trumpets, telling you something, calling your attention to something. That's what trumpets do. They call your attention to something. Off that one, there's another one also. This is in Genesis after the flood. God shall enlarge Japheth. Now, Japheth becomes the northern Europe, Russia, all those Slavic nations. Japheth becomes those nations, and it's big. Russia's enormous. It covers 7 time zones, Russia does. 7 time zones. It's enormous. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tent of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Dwell in the tent of Shem. Shem is the Semitic people, including the Israelites, including us. Including us. In the 80s and 90s and zeros, we're going to talk a little bit. When we were part of Europe, there was a thing called free movement of people. So if you lived anywhere in Europe, you had the right to live anywhere else. The Polish population went from 80,000 to 800,000 people in England in that time. Now, no matter what you think about it, there it is. Japheth, those northern Slavic tribes, he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. So again, so a few laws where you get this stranger in Hebrew is, I think it's goy. In Greek it's xenos. You have a thing called xenophobia, which is a fear of strangers. And we looked at. He thinks it's something funny and laughs his head off, but he's actually laughing in Russian because he's such an intelligent kid. And he bought me an elephant, so he's my mate. Oh, they bought me an elephant. They bought me an elephant, wherever Tiffany is. Okay, so just a number of laws, Old Testament laws, from God that understands human nature, not from the humanists who think they can make a better world without God, which is basically what human rights law is. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and also the stranger that sojourns among you. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger, which means to drive him out, nor oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Also thou shalt not oppress the stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing that you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This law, these laws are repeated and repeated. I'm picking out. You want to go down the list, it's very good for you. You cannot treat people, God doesn't want anybody to treat people differently according to where they're from or what group they belong to. Even between us. The Lord is very much for things being fair. Right? So if one does wrong, he did wrong. It's not a matter of where he's from or his history. It's a matter of the wrong he did and him only. And if he does right, it's no less right than somebody who was born in the land. A couple of things with it. We're going to look at vex a little bit more. That comes up a few times. You know the heart of a stranger. So this is talking about empathy. Empathy. That you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes because you've experienced similar things. Now, most of this talk is not meant to be spiritual. It's practical. It's natural. It's to do with the things of the day. But we know what it's like to come in here and for the first time. We know what it's like to hear the gospel and not know what to make of it. having been taught something else, being a stranger, different than the rest of us. We know how that feels. And so we can have empathy and we can help. Makes us less judgy. Empathy makes you less judgy. And it's not yeah, let's carry on. A few more. We're going to get onto this one in a minute. Thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyards. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. So we're going to get onto the thing that strangers, foreigners, when they came into the land, were entitled to benefits. They were entitled by God to benefits. Right? If a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, you shall not vex him. We'll get onto that again in a minute. The stranger that dwells with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And one of the ways the law of Moses worked, and it happens in this land too, is after a while, you know, if you've come here from another place, you can apply to be a citizen, can't you? You apply to be a citizen, you sing a song and you know something about the country, and you kind of swear allegiance to the country, and you become, as one, born in the land, legally, permanently. That's God's law. You know, so there is a route through for the stranger. Thou shalt not vex him, drive him out. This fellow was in the paper on Friday. They had an incident in Southport where a second-generation migrant killed 3 young girls with a very, very sharp knife. And it's shocking, a shocking event, right? And there's rioting all over England. There is a thing that maybe information is withheld, right? There is a thing that information is withheld. On Friday, this man got 9 years in prison for attacking, trying to set fire to an asylum hotel in Rotherham. 9 years he got. And you think, listen, the people in that hotel haven't attacked or stabbed anybody, mate. Have they? You know, the law is you can't have one law for you and one law for another. You can't. It's not group identity. That really is the key to the talk. It's not group identity. The man that did that thing, his process is slow. It's not me, by the way, in case you're looking. If that was me, I'd wear a blue scarf. You'd wear a red scarf to a riot. Rioting, by the way, if you don't know your history, is an English thing that comes up about every 10 or 12 years. So, always in the summer. Poll tax, Black Lives Matter, the 80s riots where it was the police and minorities feeling the police were heavy-handed. So every 10, 15 years, they light up the skies of a summer night. That's part of it goes back way back. That's another story. So, yeah. Cursed be he that perverts the judgment of the stranger, fatherless and widow, and all the people shall say amen. As I say, those people in that hotel, no matter what you think about them, didn't do the thing that he's attacking them for. That's not knowing the heart of a stranger. That's not empathy. Right? 9 years is a very, very long time. It's a very, very long time. And then on the other hand, it's not that all strangers are lovely. You know, I did have a picture of, in London, 200 nations on the earth, and one representative of every nation that lives in London in one picture. It's about 15 years old. It was in the Daily Mail, cracking picture. And so 200 odd nations are represented in London, right? But 150 of those nations are also represented in British prisons. So the people aren't saying everybody's lovely, but you've got to have that in a context. And it says, the soul that does aught presumptuously, whether he be born in the land or a stranger, the same reproaches the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people. So it's not that all foreigners are lovely, but neither are all British people. The majority of people in prisons are British. You get base fellows among every strata and every place you will ever go. So if you are going to allow birds into the tree, you will get magpies. You will get magpies. It's just the nature of it. But you can't, like there was one a little while ago when somebody was saying in Parliament, we want all these people that come, say Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, we want to know, Albania, we want to know what percentage of them commit crimes. I think that's a terrible idea. You tar everyone that's from that place with a brush, and you'll have people looking at them in that way. That's what you'll do. That's what you'll do. And that's what happens. And you think, absolutely not. But if people are bad, they're bad. You know, so there's no... in the Bible, and also in the news, actually, I did have a couple of news headlines which I cut out for time. Mass migration is often likened to water. These people are flooding over the border. There is a river of people. And did you look like a river? So that metaphor is used for migration. It's actually used in the Bible as well, but it's used in the newspapers. The newspapers use that imagery. And so we want to look a little bit at that. I'll show you in a minute. I want to get on to illegal immigration. The difference between legal and illegal immigration is that you know, one's against the law, and they don't come through. I landed once in Adelaide Airport in 2004, and I'm standing there waiting for my bag, and this fella's started to ask about my trip, just standing next to me. Started to ask about my trip, said our church convention and all this, like, and he started to ask more questions. And I was, oh, your border force, plainclothes border force, and he asked me a lot of questions because he wanted to know who was coming into Australia and what he was up to, and you know, being an honest broker, I could answer them all day long, right? And he's in the gate. He's the elder in the gate. And the way the Bible works is, this is just examples. They turn aside the poor in the gate from their right. So when you went into a city, in the city, the gate had depth, and the elders would sit there, and judgment and justice was done there. And that's where people came in and went out. So he'd see everyone that came in, and he'd assess them that came in, and he'd decide. It says they hate the evil, love the good, and establish judgment in the gate. It may be that the Lord God of hosts will be gracious to the remnants of Joseph. Yeah, borders. So just to explain how it works, I'm a painter and decorator that reads articles, right? So, but I read them, and I look at them, and there's a difference between. So Britain is still subject to the European Court of Human Rights, even though Brexit. So it's somebody else's law, and under their law, if somebody reaches the border, if they reach the beach at Dover, then they have to be treated in a particular way, not according to our law, but according to European law. And European law is interesting because European law is that when a migrant comes, say from Syria, refugees we're talking about people who are fleeing or are claimed to be fleeing very bad regimes, and you would too, right? Remember that, how people live and how we live. So the law in Europe is that the first safe country you arrive in, you are not to go anywhere else. But they don't. Like, so they arrive in Hungary and they want to get to Germany. So they're constantly crossing borders like a river. 2015, he has a major flow of Syrians into Germany, particularly. Or they want to get to England. So they've come through whatever they've gone to, got to France, which is safe, and they still want to come to England. Well, European law says there's a stay in the first country that has them. Now, you might think that's a good law. The Anglo-Saxons were sifted through the nations. They went from nation to nation to nation to come here. God brought them here through nations. So I'm not, like, they don't accept that law because they want to be in particular countries, some Germany, some France, some England. I can understand their thinking, right? I can understand their thinking. But the problem is, when they come in, there's no one at the border to check them. So a couple of years ago, there was one story which is very interesting, which was in Ipswich. this guy who'd come on a boat to Dover. He'd come, no papers, and he told them he was 15, and he went to school in Ipswich. And this girl wrote, "Why is there a 30-year-old man in my maths class?" Because they took him at his words, and he was not 15; he was 27. I think they found that out in the end. So you have that problem. But I'll show you it's not the first time that it's happened. But the point is, there isn't elders in the gates, and where there is with us, we are subject to somebody else's law. We are subject to European law, and people have all sorts of rights that under British law they might not have, but they have got them. I'm going to play this one. Can we press play on this one? And a bit of sound on it too.
A group of migrants struggle through the rain and mud of the Panamanian jungle toward the U.S. border. Wei Wei Wang is one of them. I'm surviving on chocolate bars, he says, and running out of drinking water. He videoed the whole grueling trek, undertaken by people from all over the world, including recently a record number from China. Since January, border officials have processed more than 10 times as many Chinese migrants as last year. The route is an open secret, first from China to Quito in Ecuador, which Chinese can enter without a visa, and then onward with detailed online advice. In this video, for example, a guide shows Quito Airport on Google Maps. If you land at night, he says, don't go outside. Next morning, catch the bus to Tolcan and carry on north.
Okay, so just a couple of things with that. So I heard that story a while back. So people come from South America. So far this year, 10,000 people have illegally entered Britain to claim refugee status. That's down from 45,000 a few years ago. In America, it's 10,000 a day across their southern border. 10,000 people a day across their southern border. And they come up through South America. So when they go from country to country, each country has a transit camp for them to move them on to the next country, because they don't want them, and they don't want to stay there anyway. And they move them on to the next country. And I heard about the Chinese, that the numbers have gone up. And also, the jungle that he showed is called the Darien Gap, 60 miles of jungle where nobody's looking after you. The rest of the way, there's people you're paying, and they're looking after you, they're helping you, you're paying. And the Darien Gap is lawless, and it's murderously lawless. But a lot of the Chinese don't go through it, they go round it on a boat, somebody's paid for them. And then the other thing, and it's the same with boats that come here, is what you notice is that they're nearly all men. There's no children. Like one guy was saying, like I don't know whether he's reporting it properly, that in the last camp before they head for America, the Chinese are separate. They don't mix. They're actually held separately, and then they move on. So you have this thing of is the sinister stuff in among the flood? Is the sinister stuff? Now, when people came in 2015 in that river, there was a terrible happening in France, in the Bataclan, where he went into a band was playing, and he shot a lot of people. All those people that did that came in the river with no papers, right? They came in the river with no papers, so no one could check on them. So I don't know whether that's the case. Let me make that clear. But we can look at it, that if it was the case, what does the Bible say? If that was the case, what does the Bible say? Back to that one. So this is a story from Revelation, and it says, so this is a story of migration. This is the way I look at it anyway, and I've done it before here. It said, the serpent cast out of his mouth waters of floods after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So really what it's talking about, I believe, looking at things historically, is invasions of the Roman Empire by the Goths, the Visigoths, the Vandals, and all those people. And they invaded, like a flood, the old Roman Empire. This is when it's breaking down from and into the Catholic system. and their intention was evil, to just destroy, which wouldn't have been good for God's church, because they wouldn't have been able to discern. And what happened was the Roman earth, soaked them up. So they took on the religion of Rome. This is an interesting thing, they took on the language of Rome, which is Latin, only they changed it to Romantic. So Italian, French, and Spanish are based on Latin. And so you can see, like language, like people, can enrich a language as well as they can add to it. So if a land soaks in the flood, it can be enriched by the flood. Like this is outside of Britain and outside of today. But they were soaked into the system, though they were the invaders, and though they were sent with evil intent. They were sent by a serpent and a dragon. So they were sent with evil intent, but the earth soaked them up. And that evil intent, which was to destroy what was left of the Roman Empire and the new-born Roman Christian system, didn't happen. And you might think that's better, but it's not better, because they would have took us with them, undiscerning, if you like. And so just this thought that water, if it's soaked into the land, can enrich the land. That's a thought, and we'll pursue that. The xenophobia. Xeno means foreigner in Greek. Phobia is fear. The fear of foreigners or strangers. Who wants to live like that? Who believes that would be a good view of people coming here? It'll be good for your soul. Right? Many people have it because they're not the well-advised. So this is Australian. So in the 50s, you can read about a thing in America called McCarthyism. So they were very afraid of communism. So after the Second World War, the Soviets were taking land and taking countries. And communism and the American way are very, very much opposed to each other, thank God. And they were very afraid of the communists. They thought they were everywhere. So McCarthy basically accused everything that moved of being a communist, had them up before Congress. Are you or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? All film stars got banned, cancelled. Musicians got cancelled. The slightest suspicion and you were marked, and no more work for you. Right? This is Australia. I don't know what the thing was in Australia, but it was the same. It wasn't the same in Britain, by the way. I'll tell you about that in a minute. The Red Menace. Red's under the bed, it's called. Where people can make you suspicious of people to the point where you walk around with mistrust in your heart and in your eyes. Like when he had a few years ago Black Lives Matter, and there was protests and a bit of violence, I say hello to people. And what I noticed was that when I saw people, that I'd think, what are they thinking? And I stopped saying hello. It didn't last long. It didn't last long, because most people aren't caught up in it. But it works a particular way. It's a phobia that takes hold and goes far too far. If there is sinister motives by a few people, Islam, ISIS-type characters, George Soros, if you know about the Hungarians, put posters of George Soros all over Hungary, saying he's paying these people to get here. You know, the Chinese thing, is there a motive which is dubious? Me and you don't know, do we? Can we know? Is it our business to know? Should it be our concern? I tell you it shouldn't, right? Because it's happened before and nothing. Whoso digs a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolls a stone, it shall roll back on him. That's in a picture. Whosoever, not whosoever diggeth a pit shall fall in it. Do you know that? You know, people who do wrong comes to them. And right in the end, on this scale anyway, the Lord's got things in hand. So I was just saying that they're entitled to benefits. And when you reap the harvest of your land, thou shalt not make clean riddance of the corners of thy field, for when thou reapest, thou shalt neither gather any gleaning of the harvest, thou shalt leave that to the poor and to the stranger. I am the Lord your God, You shall have one manner of law as well for the stranger and one for your own country. I am the Lord your God. So people are entitled to benefits. The asylum system, by the way, we had Utam, we know a guy in India, Utam, and we tried to get him over here legally. There is a scheme where he could be a supported worker. And we didn't know what we were doing. It's legalese, and we didn't know what we, so we failed. And he wants desperately to get out of India, and so would you if you were him. So would you if you were him, right? He can tell you stories, right, and show you pictures. And but he said the refugee in England, you're not allowed to work. You get such a little pittance. You put in hotels. He said it's a really not good existence. And he said even if I could come that way, I wouldn't. Right? So they're entitled to benefits now. It can be, and this is the report, that people take advantage of the nation's good nature. People take advantage of the nation's good nature. This cartoon was in the paper last month. So it's all these shops with staff needed, job vacancy, a hole that needs filling, and the only queue is for the benefits office. The only queue is for... Now, that's true of English people very much, and also a minority of people that come over. It's bad for your soul. It's bad for your soul. And you'll always get people who are weak and will fall for that. I'll get more money, therefore I'm better off. No, you're not. You become entitled and lazy and bitter. And you've got a few extra pounds, and what did that cost you? What did that cost you? You know, most people that come into this country are not like that. I watch them in the high streets with their Deliveroo bags. Some of them have come on boats. Now, they don't work for Deliveroo, but the guy that works for Deliveroo sublets his contract. Somebody was telling me that the other day. You think, he's working. What's the problem? What's going to be the problem? He's working. Working, aspiring, is a lot better than a lot of English people do. So I'm well over my time, but you're coughing for it anyway. So just an example from history, 1550 to about 1700, to England, especially to Kent, came the Huguenots from France. France was Catholic, very Catholic actually, very strangely Catholic. And the Huguenots were Protestants, they liked the Bible. And they were driven out of France, often murdered. And he came to England, and there was lots of laws made to welcome them in. And one of the scriptures that often gets mentioned with the Huguenots is, I was a stranger and you took me in. That's the gospel. I was a stranger. He's talking about one of his own there. So these were Protestants. Yeah, it says it there. And you can't really see it on the cartoon. But the cartoon is divided. This Hogarth, for people that know a little bit of, you know Hogarth, don't you, Jerry? Yeah, he made prints of English life in the 1600s and 1700s, Gin Lane and all this type of thing. And it's on this side are the Huguenots, and on this side are the English they're coming into. These are well-ordered, clean, and moral. And on the other side, they're drunk and immoral. And that's what it was like. Right? The Huguenots came with skills, with hard work, with the intelligence that comes from believing God. Right? And they enriched the land. There's a saying, you know, you're talking about a flood. There was a lot of them. A rising tide raises all boats. So England was enriched by them. I think we're seeing that now. People coming from countries where we were talking to a lady the other day, and she said she teaches her kids, enjoy life, take your studies seriously, and basically take hold of the opportunities that are in this land. And they love their mum. Their mum looks after them. So there's love in the house. And you think that's aspirational. And you hope it when they go to school that the English kids pick it up off them, those who aren't. Because lots of English people are not aspirational. They're entitled mentality. There's whole cities that are full of them. There's whole towns that are full of them. It's different down here. There are towns up north where it's full of people who are dead and just draining the benefit system because they've lost the ability to aspire. They've lost it. So a flood can enrich the land, that's the point. So the Huguenots, silk workers, helped start the Bank of England. You can read 1,000 things they did for the good of the country, right? The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Because people here often have got it all, and they've lost their hunger, and lost their respect for God, and the respect for what they've stepped into, the land they've stepped into. And one of the reasons there's mass migration at the moment is because a lot of people will not work anymore. Because they can milk the system, right? And we need people to look after us. Do you want to send them back? Do you want to vex them? Should they not be here? Right? It's not the case. We're getting to the end now. Just a few things in the Old Testament. Marriage. The points out that Joseph, Moses and Boaz were all married to strangers. Moses married Miriam. She was a Midianite because he got sent to Midian for 40 years because he killed a fella. He got 40 years. About what you get today. And he married a Midianite. No problem. Joseph married a priest of a pagan religion, the priest of On's daughter, Potiphar's daughter, is it? I think he marries Potiphar's daughter. No problem. Not in God's eyes. Not in God's eyes. Boaz marries Ruth, and Ruth is the grandmother or great-grandmother of King David. Strangers in the land. Getting there. Heroes of the Old Testament. So Caleb and Joshua went into the promised land, and they come back with the good report, and it wasn't acted upon. We know that one. And Caleb was of the tribe of Judah, but his father was an Edomite. Which, you know, is that a stranger because they were brothers? You know, Esau and Jacob were brothers. But he wasn't of Jacob. And here's the thing, and this is how it works really, practically. Somebody was telling me about Vietnamese in Australia, that when they first arrived, there is a friction. There is a friction. And then what happens is the kids go to school together, end of problem. Because the children do it better than the adults. And by the time they finish school, they're all one. And Caleb is second generation. So his father is a foreigner, and he becomes a great hero of Israel. As I say, you can say that Ruth is the same. I think I'm just about done. And just our viewpoint, our perspective. You know, you can look for reds under the bed. Listen, don't get entangled with the affairs of this life. I am interested in these news stories. Not madly interested. I'm interested in the history. Very interested. I'm interested in the news stories. But if you take a political viewpoint, then a number of things will happen to you. That becomes your walk. You know, you're no longer looking to please him. You have to, the thing is, bring people down to the individual that you meet next. The individual you meet next. Don't be judgy before you spoke to them. And you will find some of them utterly inspiring. Like I was talking to a guy that had been around a lot of churches. The reds under the bed thing is similar to the devil in Pentecostal churches. Just round the corner. They're going to get you. They're going to do bad things to your children. You better watch it. Like that, like. And you live like that if you want. I don't want. Right? I don't want. And not that we should be naive. But if you bring it down to the individual, no, somebody was telling me he'd been around a lot of churches, and they kind of come to us now, and he's saying, in one church, he said, there was no one spirit-filled apart from one. And he was an Afghanistan refugee, spirit-filled and full of it. He was full of it. You know, goodness, like really impressed. So I think that's about it. Yeah. It ended the half an hour that went on for a little while longer. Right. Mike, would you just thank God for us and pray for us, please?
Lord God, we do appreciate so much what you've brought us into, Lord God. Our eyes have been opened to what this world is about, Father God, and where it's going, what it needs, Lord God. And Father, you commissioned us, to be about a great work. We do thank you for this, Lord, and we thank you, Lord, that it's very, very clear what we're to be involved in and what we're to be not involved in. Lord, that you bless us as we go our separate ways. Lead us to someone who is hungry and thirsting after bless us all abundantly.